It's 11 p.m. and these are the headlines. Algeria's head of diplomacy, Ahmed Attaf, received by Angolan president as special envoy of the President of the Republic. And diplomats in Geneva discuss UN's responsibility in Western Sahara decolonization. Paris rally calls for respecting international law in Western Sahara. And Morocco faces growing social unrest amid widespread protests. Welcome back, everyone. First of all, and as part of his official visit to Angola in his capacity as special envoy of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, the Minister of State, Minister of Foreign Affairs, National Community Abroad and African Affairs, Ahmed Attaf, announced today after being received by the President of the Republic of Angola, João Manuel Gonçalves Lourenço, that 20 cooperation agreements will be signed soon between the two countries, including different priority sectors. Ahmed Attaf also added that the joint Algerian-Angolan Commission will meet and that a business council will be set up between the two parties to promote interaction between Algerian and Angolan businessmen. During the meeting, Attaf handed over a written message from the President of the Republic to the Angolan President. The Minister of Foreign Affairs also praised the key role Angola is currently playing in establishing lasting peace between the Democratic Republic of Congo and Rwanda. Ahmed Attaf expressed the aspiration of the President of the Republic to pursue joint efforts aimed at raising relations of brotherhood, cooperation and solidarity between the two countries to broader horizons, which would lead to high-level economic cooperation as such an excellent and ideal relation between the two countries. Let's have a listen.
The meeting in Luanda the day before an important event for the Great Lakes region and an important moment in the stabilizing, pacifying and reassuring action that President João Lourenço is leading in the region through what we hope is the reconciliation and peace between DRC and Luanda. We are truly privileged and honored to be the first to be able to say on behalf of President Tebboune our congratulations and encouragement to the sister Republic of Angola for this great event, to which we wish all possible success. Next year will be a historic year for Algeria as well as for Angola, because it will be the great celebration of the great national liberation of Angola. On the same occasion, Angola will chair the African Union. President Tebboune was keen to assure his brother, His Excellency the President João Lourenço, who will be at his side, and that the success of the Angolan presidency will be a success for Angola, a success for Algeria, and a success for all Africa.
And in other news, the Algerian Investment Promotion Agency has registered over 11,000 projects, with more than 50% already in implementation, announced Director General Ammar Kash. The projects are expected to create 270,000 jobs, reflecting renewed investor confidence. The agency aims to implement 20,000 projects by 2025, focusing on expanding real estate and creating new industrial zones. Rakash also announced an annual competition to reward the best performing single window, promoting service improvements. And on the international scene and from Geneva, diplomats and experts spoke out to reiterate the UN's ongoing responsibility and duty for the decolonization of these Sahrawi territories, where people have chosen to live freely according to the principles of international justice. Najah.
The European Parliament now seems to be shifting its stance and finally emphasizing the legitimate right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination. This comes after a long period of complicity through its financial and political support for the Moroccan occupation and the exploitation of the Saharan wealth. The Sahrawi people's right to self-determination was reaffirmed, as was the rejection of any attempt, notably by France and Spain, to continue the violations marked by the pillaging of the Sahrawi resources. The final declaration stresses the pursuit of dynamic approach aimed at directly implementing the decisions of the European Court of Justice, recognizing the permanent sovereignty of the Sahrawi people over their natural resources. At the United Nations headquarters in Geneva, discussions focused on the latest developments in the Sahrawi cause. Diplomats and experts speak out to recall the permanent responsibility of the UN in the decolonization of 17 territories still listed as non-self-governing, including the Sahrawi territories. The aim of this group is to support the Sahrawi cause and help them decide their own fate. The delay in implementing the resolutions of the United Nations General Assembly is due to the agenda of the Moroccan occupier and the complicity of certain countries such as France and Spain, which give priority to their interests in the region. For us, international law is a line of defense to remind this executive authority that it is neither its right nor its interest. There is an international community that has established international law, and the agreements they have all signed. Respect for international legitimacy is mandatory. Speakers at the United Nations conference in Geneva condemned the actions of certain powers that threaten the future of colonized territories and destabilize North Africa. They also emphasized the UN's responsibility to enforce resolutions on self-determination.
In Morocco now, more and more demonstrations are organized by the Moroccan people to denounce the social crises that hit the country, including corruption and the high cost of living. Human rights associations continue their fight despite the Mahsen's policy of turning deaf ear to these protests. Mania Al-Bahri.
The street is once again ablaze under the growing pressure of the social and political demands of the Moroccan people. The demonstrations, which are increasingly intensifying, are part of a border struggle against restrictions, repression and human rights violations. Added to this are corruption and the high cost of living that have amplified the social crisis. This demonstration turned into a sit-in because of the high prices, pressure and lack of freedom of expression. The Mahsen resorted to violence to disperse us. The Mahsen adopted the policy of deaf ear, ignoring calls for deep reforms and clinging to a policy of total indifference to the suffering of citizens. Human rights organizations maintain their efforts and continue to play an active role despite the challenges. These events come in a context where structural challenges such as unemployment and poverty continue to affect large sections of Moroccan society.
This afternoon in La Place de la République in Paris, France, Sahrawi people and their just cause supporters gathered advocating for self-determination and raising awareness about their ongoing struggle and fight against the Moroccan occupier, strengthening the need to respect the international law and the adoption of the United Nations decisions regarding the Western Sahara. Afif Belouchat and Najah Diyar.
At Place de la République in Paris, the Sahrawi community gathered to commemorate the 64th anniversary of the United Nations Resolution 1514, adopted in 1960. This landmark text remains a cornerstone of the anti-colonialist movement, asserting the right of all peoples to self-determination and calling for the immediate abolition of colonialism in all its forms. The new Sahrawi generation, living in the midst of the generational exile, continues to carry this message forward, encapsulated in their powerful slogans.
Je suis une Sahrawi.
I'm a Sahrawi and we're here to show everyone that we're always Sahrawi and our patriotism is even stronger. It's been 50 years we're occupied. We seek liberation to our people. There are Sahrawi prisoners in Moroccan prisons. No one is seeing what we're living. We are losing family every day. What we want is our liberation.
Ils ne voient pas ce que nous on voit, c'est qu'on perd nos familles tous les jours et on veut notre libération.
Le President of the French Republic has flouted international law, and today is an opportunity for us Sahrawi and also supporters of the Sahrawi cause to demand respect for international law, and precisely that the economic interests of France are not above the interest of the legitimate Sahrawi peoples and their right. The French government has always supported the genocidal war waged by the Moroccan regime against the Sahrawi people, so it's no surprise, but in my opinion, what we have to do is to mention all those governments and their deeds, especially one of them is the member of the Security Council. The Sahrawi people's struggle extends beyond street demonstrations. At the University of Paris, Panthéon-Assas, a group of lawyers held a specialized meeting to discuss the economic and legal challenges. This initiative represents another method of combating political inertia through well-researched and evidence-based arguments. The idea is to raise awareness on one hand and for the students on the other. These are interesting legal issues, and there are quite a few questions, like how can this situation be compared with other situations similar to what's happening in other countries. The aim of this meeting at Assas University in Paris is to raise awareness of the problem of the Polisario Front and the Sahrawi People's Democratic Republic. I've been a lawyer for several Sahrawi militants. Some have held refugee status on French territories. These demonstrations aim to shed light on the injury and suffering of an entire people facing the harsh winter cold, to emphasize the relevance of their struggle and to assert that the issue of the Western Sahara is far from being forgotten. Their unwavering dream remains the same: to see their homeland, a symbol of hope and dignity, liberated from the grip of oppression.
And for nearly 50 years, these Sahrawi people have suffered serious violations of their human rights under the Moroccan occupation. The collective of Sahrawi cause defenders launched an urgent appeal to the international community to put an end to this injustice. Rania al-Bahri.
In Western Sahara, human rights continue to be trampled. The collective of Sahrawi human rights defenders, Codesa, denounces war crimes, acts of genocide and systematic plundering of natural resources orchestrated by the Moroccan occupation for nearly 50 years. According to Codesa, Sahrawi civilians are subjected to bombings often carried out with drones, forced disappearances and systematic oppression against human rights defenders. These acts, described as war crimes and genocide, require an urgent international investigation. The collective also calls for the application of international humanitarian law in the occupied territories, with the intervention of the International Committee of the Red Cross to protect the Sahrawi civilians. We denounce the systematic and punitive campaign by Moroccan occupation forces against Sahrawi human rights defenders. We call for intensified efforts to release all Sahrawi human rights defenders, journalists and political prisoners. We also demand the revelation of the fate of the disappeared Sahrawis and the recognition of the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. According to Codesa, the natural resources of Western Sahara are plundered by the Moroccan occupier, who illegally transfers them to foreign institutions and countries under the pretext of investment. At the same time, the collective denounces the ban on international organizations, the media and independent observers from accessing the region, a strategy that aims to cancel the ongoing violations of human rights. The collective urges the international community to put an end to this situation by completing the process of decolonization on Western Sahara. It demands the immediate release of Sahrawi and Moroccan political prisoners and the revelation of the fate of the disappeared. Codesa insists only the recognition of the right of the Sahrawi people to self-determination can guarantee justice and dignity to this population deprived of its fundamental rights.
And for the third month running, women in the occupied town of Dakhla are pursuing their protests against the repressive and unjust policies of the Mahsen regime. After their hunger strike, these women have taken things a step further and have now decided to occupy the streets and set up tents at 3 a.m. These women are determined to continue their movement of protest despite the deaf ears of the representatives of the Mahsen regime. That was it for today's news. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you tomorrow.